Hey y'all, welcome back to the Power and Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Solana Lewis, and today I join Kristen Dunsmore yet again. We have a conversation all about training while on your period, dealing with urinary incontinence, and water cutting while it's your time of the month. Um, we also talk about cats and Christmas and stuff. But no, seriously, it's really focused on basically us as female coaches and both as coaches who have a lot of female athletes, what we do for our clients during these times, and if we train them differently while they're on their period versus when they're not on their period, how we help our athletes or how we ourselves have handled urinary incontinence. So it's a good conversation. I think it's a very relevant conversation. I think it's a topic that not a lot of people talk about too often. And yeah, I just hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure if you enjoy our podcast, please do subscribe to it. If you're on Apple, you can subscribe and leave a review and a rating. That is so appreciated. If you're on Spotify, you can subscribe and leave a rating. Appreciate you guys so much. And into today's episode. All right, y'all. I'm back with Chris D. What's up? I see the Christmas tree. I see you being
You like
festive.
it?
I do.
I
It's so
am.
cute.
I definitely went over the top this year.
Really?
Yeah, I have my parents are coming to visit, so I feel like I have to like show them that I'm an adult and, decorate and I can live alone and make my own doctor's appointments and like do adult stuff.
Oh my God.
Even though that's not true, but I have to have that facade that I'm an adult.
Funny enough, my mom was like, "Are you gonna get a tree for this year? Because you didn't get a tree last year or the year before." I'm like, "Mom, I have two cats. Like, and the one cat, I know he will tear down the tree. He will climb up the tree. He will knock it down. He will eat the lights. Like, forget it. I just don't decorate. It's all because of him. Like, I almost bought decorations that I saw like at my gym. They had some cute little thing where they're like, "Oh, if you like make stuff, you can sell it on this one day." And this
Yeah.
woman made like the cutest little like vases that she like decorated with Christmas. I was like, if I buy it and put it on the table, he will knock it over and shatter it. I will not buy any decorations until either he dies or I live in like a really big house where I give him a whole room to themselves, like a whole cat room.
Yeah. Yeah. I have two cats and I think they're kind of dumb. Like I love them, but they're just I don't know, they're a little spacey, but they're cute, so whatever. Um, but they kind of just stare at the tree and like are confused as to what it is, and they'll smack it, but they don't. Yeah, they haven't done anything to it. It's still standing, so I'm not too concerned. But yeah, they're special.
This is the issue. You see, I got an orange cat, and that was a big mistake because
Mm,
he is like Satan's child in the form of a cat, and so that's why I got
yeah,
it.
he's adventurous and curious. Mine are just lazy and sleep and eat.
That's what I wanted.
Sometimes I want attention, and that's it.
But anywho, all right. So we're basically here to talk about all things that have to do with women and training for powerlifting, like things that specifically women deal with,
Yeah.
which is
So I
cool.
think,
But I say we're both,
yeah,
women and coaches. I mean, we kind of have athletes, so that kind of works. Good topic.
kind of, yeah. Well, I think there's something special just, like dealing with female athletes and being a female coach because you do have some level of understanding that, like, just a male coach will just never understand, when you talk about cramping, like, they don't know. Right?
Yes,
Like they have
100%.
like they can, "Oh, well, that sucks. I'm sorry. Take it easy today," whatever, but they don't know that feeling, you know? Where like
Yes.
if your athlete comes to you and they're like, "Solana, like my cramps," and you're like, "Oh, man, I feel that," and you'll there's this like level of understanding that just yeah, I don't think male coaches will ever truly understand that feeling.
I completely agree. And I think it's kind of wild that like I'll still hear like if I get an athlete who came from a male coach, I'll still hear like I brought up like how all around my period training was like really rough and they just kind of were like flabbergasted and didn't know what to do. and like they
Mhm.
just freeze, and I'm like, what? You can't even talk to you about it? Like, no, like you really kind of like glossed over it. Like you can't even
Oh,
talk about it.
really?
Like he's a grown man. Like I've heard that a couple, not a ton, but a couple times where I'm
It's
like, do they just like try to ignore the fact that it exists completely? Like I'm lost.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, or just a comfort level too, like maybe I mean, I don't think that I would care if I, talking to my coach, but I could see how that may be something that might be an uncomfortable conversation, where just if you're working with a female coach, you're just, they understand. So um maybe it's easier to talk to us, hopefully.
yes,
But yeah, I could see how maybe I mean, I would like to say that good reputable coaches would understand, right? And they kind of like will talk about it. But I can see how there's other coaches who may just be like, yeah, that's not my area of expertise. Just go do your thing. I don't know what to tell you.
I feel you. But all right, let's dive into it. So when it comes to training around periods, I feel like the main question people want answered is like, do we adjust training for women's periods? And my answer to that is I really do not. I simply adjust the expectation. That's typically what happens.
Hmm.
So I can say right now, my roster tends to be around 30 people, and I probably have only like two or three who really are like, yo, when my period hits, like I am weaker, or like the week before. It's like a specific time every month. They're like, I am weaker. It's everything feels heavier. So I'm not going to change the training and make it like RPE 4 just because you're, on a time of the month.
Yeah.
But what I will do is simply adjust like their estimates. So I'm like, all right, so if certain things are supposed to be like RPE 7 or 8, and typically I think like RPE 8 for this will be like 300 pounds, I'll probably lower the range to like 270 to 280 because you're still aiming to hit the RPE, but you probably aren't going to feel as strong that day. And if that's a very consistent metric that we always track, like, okay, every week 2, you feel this way. And we know that week 3, you're going to get a bump up if you're going to feel better. It's not a problem. It's literally not an issue. We expect it, so we know why it's happening. There's no confusion, and we can just keep going with the plan because we know exactly why you feel weaker. So it's not a concern. It's just something we simply work through.
Yeah. And I like how you say that you might feel weaker, and maybe that could, maybe you feel different. You don't feel as great. Maybe you feel a little bit bloated. But is there actually like a physiological like difference that you actually like physically weaker? And I think that like it what we know now like currently doesn't support that theory. And so, yeah, I think it would come down to like the individual, right? Like like for me personally, I don't notice I mean, other than I just feel tired and bloated and gross and like hate myself. I can still train. I haven't really noticed any like drop in performance. But maybe for some people, like they do, but you don't necessarily need to change training per se. You just, like you said, you go by how you feel. And if that means that maybe RPEs feel a little bit higher than they would otherwise, and you just adjust accordingly. But yeah, I've never modified anybody's program uh to like coincide with their menstrual cycle. And I know that that's like kind of become popular lately, not in powerlifting, but like more in just general fitness community. And I just don't think that um it like the science holds up to that whole philosophy.
I'm happy you mentioned that because I have been seeing it a lot more. Like
Yeah.
people who track every single stage of like their menstrual cycle, and like during this stage, I do more cardio. During this stage, I'm gonna lift weights.
Yeah.
During this stage, I'm tired. I'm not gonna train. And I see it often. I have people who I followed for years who just started that, and I'm like,
This
Re-
is
is this really necessary?
yeah.
Like you're making it seem like we're broken. Like I'm broken this week. I can only do cardio. I can't lift a weight. And I'm like,
Yeah. I
before you
definitely
started this, you were fine. Like you you've been
yeah.
lifting for 5 years and you were fine until this year.
Yeah. And I mean, I definitely do see it more of like just general fitness. Think that I guess powerlifting community is a little bit, I would like to think, more knowledgeable, but maybe that's not the case. But also like you can't really, if you are competing at nationals and you're like, oh well, that's the week of my period, so I'm going to be weak, so I can't compete. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, it happens, you can't really control it. And there's been times where I've had to compete while I was menstruating, and it's like, what it is what it is. I can't like change the meet or ask them to postpone it or whatever. It's just like, hey, this is the situation. And the only thing I think you brought this up would be maybe like if you are feeling some bloating and you have to cut weight, you might need to consider that. Maybe you are an extra 3 pounds heavier than you would be otherwise, and you kind of have to consider those extra 3 pounds when you're cutting weight to make weight for the meet. But otherwise, yeah, there's nothing that I would really change.
Exactly. And going into that, when I have had an athlete who is going to be menstruating, well, I said menstruating. I don't even know what.
Menstruating.
I can't say it. No, I can. Menstruate. Anyways, whatever. Y'all know what I meant. During the meet, all we do. So number one, I would say the most important thing for that is you need to track your weight in general to know if you really do gain weight during,
Hmm.
because not everybody does. Some people just feel
Yep.
not great, but their weight does not change. So that's number one. And then number two, once you have tracked that consistently, at least 3 months of like, well, if you can, 3 months of like literally just looking at your weight period week versus other weeks, and you know where it is. If it does spike up, what I've done is, besides adjusting macros, I do adjust macros to make the fats higher, the carbs a bit lower, because carbs do tend to hold more water. And then along with that, if we're doing a water load, I actually pull the water early. So
Yeah,
like, yeah.
I
So
like
like
that.
if we would do like typically the last, like really just the last days, a big drop in water, or maybe the last 2 days are the bigger drops, I might be like, all right, like 3 days out, we're gonna start to drop the water, not 2 days out. And
Yeah.
along with that, I may actually, because I don't always do sodium loading and then cutting. It depends on the person and how much weight they have to lose. But if they are on their period, I do tend to do a sodium load along with the water load, because now we can probably lose an extra pound there or something like that.
Hmm.
And that has worked so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I always what I'll do too, and I'm sure that most coaches would, is weigh yourself in the morning and at night. And I always
Mm-hmm.
like to measure like, because how much weight you lose overnight. So for me, historically, it's always been about 1.5 pounds. And so I know that if I were to go to bed at, so if I'm a 69 lifter, 69.5, I can go to bed at half a kilo over and know that I'll probably wake up right around weight where I need to be. And that's kind of always, I would even say, even with like you said, monitoring your weight, like with through the whole month, you can see like how your body weight is fluctuating over time. If when you're menstruating, is there an increase in body weight, or does it stay the same? Because like you said, it's like we're all different, we all have different experiences. I have like the worst cramps ever. um my sister just gets migraines. It's kind of like just depends on the person. But yeah, if you find that that's something that maybe you experience, then you'll want to account for that, and yeah, like making those necessary adjustments beforehand as opposed to like the night before. You're like, oh, I'm carrying a little bit of extra water than I should, and then like I'm gonna text my coach like, hey Solana, help.
You're like,
What do I
we
do?
go in 11 hours. All
Yeah,
right.
you're like, start spitting, girl. Start.
Like, get on your knees and pray to God, because you are too late for me to
Yeah.
save you, girl. Only God can save me now.
There's fitting. You got 12
um,
hours.
but I was about to say, I had another point about the period. Oh, come on. It was right there. I'm gonna cut this out.
It's okay. Do what you gotta do.
I don't have a freaking thing to say. Hold on, I was thinking period.
Do you have bed cramps?
No, that's not what it is.
No.
I'm not. Thank God.
Oh, must be nice. I have to OD on ibuprofen.
Really.
Oh my God, yeah. It's not OD, that's probably extreme. I shouldn't say that, but I'm up
Oh,
there.
I got it. Okay. So, if you're going to do a bigger meet, such as maybe nationals, I definitely recommend that. I don't like doing it in general because like a waterload is annoying, but you might want to test it out. If you know that your period is the same time every month, it's definitely happening during nationals, and you gain, like, I have one girl who gains like 4 pounds. And I'm like,
Mhm.
you already sits a little bit over. So I'm like, all right, like now we like 7 pounds. You know what I mean? I want to test that in advance. Because I don't want to risk that one. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
that's a good idea.
That's actually really smart, yeah, to, maybe, like, 2 months or something, or, like, the month before is, "Hey, we're
Hmm.
gonna do a water cut and see how you respond." That's actually, yeah, as opposed to, like, "Oh, we'll do it the week before the meet, and let's see how
Yeah,
it goes and cross our fingers."
it's for real because I hardly ever recommend testing a water cut in advance because, like, again, it's annoying. And honestly, no matter what, so far I've been able to make it work. Like, as long as we don't have a crazy amount of weight to lose, and typically I don't let people go over 5 pounds of weight. And the smaller the weight class, the less weight. If it's like 3 pounds, I'm like, okay, no matter what, I'm gonna get you to lose it. If something weird happens, you might have to spit. I might ask you to, like, have to get in the bathtub for like 10 minutes. That's the worst case scenario, but like we gonna lose it. So I'm not concerned. We don't have to test it. But like, 7 pounds because of a period, I'm like,
Yeah.
Lord, please test it because I really don't know for a fact. And nobody wants to fly over to nationals to not compete or be a guest lifter. Nobody wants that. Cause then I feel like I failed as a coach. Like, you wasted a lot of money. You paid me to coach you. We there and you're a guest lifter. And I promised to get you to the weight. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that would be, I have to say, fortunately, I've been close where I'm spitting and
right up
trying to
downstairs.
I've been running up and down stairs, oh, like, where I've been close, but I have always made weight. And then at that point, like, you have to kinda consider, like, is it worth it? Because my performance was not great, but I made weight, so, and it was Arnold too, where it was like, it's not even a weight class, it's one
Literally
by
the one meet
well,
where
it's
like
like,
it's
that was
just
I was like, "That was so dumb. Why did I don't know."
because you weren't thinking about it. It's like the same thing happened
No.
to, well, not it happened to me, but like I remember I coached as we got close to Arnold, all of a sudden he was like, wait, you don't have to make weight, right? Because I always cut, but I cut like 3 pounds. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I do because I wanted to count for the weight class for national. He's like, oh, okay. But I was like, there's still a reason to make weight, but it depends. Like, so it depends on you.
Yeah, I don't yeah, looking back, I was like, "That was dumb." But lesson learned. Oh, well. Too late now.
Now, I'm definitely gonna have you start out with talking about incontinence because you literally posted a whole survey link yesterday about it. So you can take it away.
Oh, boy.
And then I'll put the
Uh,
link in the show notes actually if you want to talk about it too.
yeah, everyone's favorite conversation is when you see a woman peeing in the gym and you're like, "Wow, that's gross. Why would you do that? That's so disrespectful." And it's like,
Because I
"Oh,
just
because I
felt like peeing.
yeah, because I did that on purpose because I was like, "Hey, watch
Look
me
at how
pee,
bladders
guys."
work.
Yeah. And so I think that's probably more so from people who are not in the powerlifting and fitness community where you see that and it's unsightly and you're like, "Oh, that's so disrespectful." And I even remember like the first time that I went to a powerlifting meet and I saw that happen and I was just like, "Oh, that sucks." Like I never thought I knew it wasn't on purpose, but I still was like, "Oh, like, that sucks for her," and then it happened to me, and I'm like, "Oh my god." But I think it is,
Oh,
like yeah, I was like, "Oh, that sucks," and then yeah, and then it happened to me, and it was like, what do you this is a I mean, when did I start? It would start happening, honestly, after I switched to sumo, and I think it's just, like, the positioning. I mean, when you're lifting and your legs are wide open pretty much, like, it kind of puts you at a disadvantage, but I think one of the biggest things that we need to talk about is how, like, when it does happen that someone thinks that something's wrong with them, right?
mm,
Like, they have a weak pelvic floor, and like, maybe that is the case, right? Like, it's not to say that that's not, but I would say that most people in our situation have, like, never been pregnant before, they've never had some pelvic floor surgery that could, like, maybe cause some issues in the future. So it's not that it's a weak pelvic floor. It's not that it's not normal. You just have to think that when you're lifting, I mean, for you, or anyone, 400 pounds, we're like close to our max, right? And you have this belt that is like squeezing against your waist. And I mean, like, you're not going to break that leather belt. That belt is not going anywhere.
Nope.
And so I look at it as like you're only as strong as like your weakest link. And I hate to use that term weak because that's not the case. But it's like, well, relative to this belt that you have on, the weakest link in this little, like a box essentially in your core is going to be the pelvic floor. And at some point it's like there's really I don't want to say there's not much that you can do, because of course there are, because there could be reasons that maybe you're not when you're bracing and you're just not like we call it the Kegel, and you're not uh
You're not
bracing
like holding, like, you're not like
the
sucking it in a
floor.
little bit.
Yeah, and so usually, like, if that's like if I have a client who's like having issues, right? What I'll do is I'll say, like, this is maybe when some beltless training might come into play. And so you're learning to brace efficiently, and almost thinking of, it's like a cue, right? Where you're gonna whatever cue that you have, maybe that cue is like, I don't know, do a Kegel before you brace. Um, but then even making sure that you're doing the Kegel appropriately. So there's some like this is gonna, like, now we're getting kind of like weird, but where some women might like brace, but they're like squeezing their butthole.
Hmm.
It's not the pelvic floor. So it's like they
Yeah.
just don't know how to perform a Kegel. Like, they think they're squeezing, but they're not, or it's the wrong hole. So that's where like something like biofeedback might come in, where you would work with a pelvic floor specialist to kind of teach you how to brace properly. But yeah, as far as it like there being something wrong, that's more than likely not the case with lifters. We're just lifting this extremely heavy weight, and at some point, like that link is just gonna break, and more often than not, it's usually in our pelvic floor by peeing on the deadlift or squat, whatever it is.
I never ever thought about it maybe more likely that you'll pee during a sumo versus a conventional. Like, that's never once crossed my mind.
Yeah. And that's like different. I've seen it happen on squats. I've seen it happen conventional deadlifts too. That's not to say that it happens more on sumo versus conventional. And I'm using just my experience personally I mean, I also started lifting more weight once I started pulling sumo. So that could
Hmm.
also be the
I'm
case
about to
as
say, like,
well.
I genuinely, like, I'm not saying that as a fact. I'm like, is that true? Like, I want to think about
No.
that. I want to like watch people. I'm like, wait, like,
Yeah, well, it happens. I mean, we're just involved in powerlifting, so we see it with lifting, but it's also prevalent like in women who are like crossfitting and gymnastics. It's very big in gymnastics. It's big in not big, but it happens in like track and field and
hmm.
soccer and volleyball, where there's a lot of like high impact. So it's not just exclusive to lifting, and not even just because of wearing a belt. Like, it happens even just like women sometimes running have experienced it. So it's not isolated to female powerlifters. I think it's more prevalent than people think and like to admit. And I think a lot of that is just because it's like an awkward conversation that people just don't feel comfortable talking about, you know?
I hear
Like,
you.
if it's a problem, people aren't gonna be open about it. I mean, maybe I'd feel more comfortable if I have a female coach and I'm like, hey, Solana, I just peed, help, but otherwise you might just keep it to yourself because it's embarrassing.
So I'm gonna say two things. Number one, when it comes to be concerned about if it's a quote unquote like actual issue to like be solved,
Hmm.
if it's only happening during like those max loads, I really
Yeah.
don't think it's a problem at all. If it's literally just happening there, it's like, we know why, we just explained it, right? Like, you're using every muscle in your body to get this weight up because it's a max load. If it's not just happening on max loads, like, I remember talking to Meg Scanlett, I think it was the first podcast we did. We did like three now. And
Yeah.
I was talking to her about, like, I think it was 2021 Nationals, when we were warming up on the same platform. and she had her. At this point, she had her kids,
Yeah.
and she was just like peeing, like in the warm ups,
Yeah.
on the warm ups. And so we talked
Hmm.
about it on the podcast, but I'm so open talking about this because she literally talked all about it. And she actually did have to go to a PT therapist because she was like, "No, I'm just peeing, period." And she literally had to figure like she had to
Yeah.
be relearn how to properly brace and relearn how to like manipulate pelvic floor because like
Yeah.
she just had to,
Well, yeah.
right? And
I mean, if you look at her, I mean, she had twins, right? Like
that
that's like,
she did have a C-section. Again, also mentioned on
oh,
the
she did.
podcast,
That's
so
right.
it's not a secret.
Okay. But that's like a traumatic, not an injury, but a traumatic experience from that
Surgery.
area, right?
It's
Like that's
surgery.
huge. So yeah, and that's why it's definitely more common in women who have had children, who have been pregnant, or if they've had some sort of like surgery in that area, because yeah, there's like tissue, scar tissue, other things that are going on. So, but yeah, like for someone who's never had kids, who's never had some sort of surgery in that area, like, and they're having this issue, um, they might think something is wrong with them. But like you said, it's, if it's only happening under heavier load, then you can probably conclude that, it's fine.
Probably not a big problem.
Yeah, nothing to be concerned about, I guess would be like, there's nothing wrong with you per se. But yeah, if you're like nervous about it, then definitely you go see someone who has experience in that area and that can kind of help you through it and see if there's anything that can be done to maybe like reduce symptoms.
And then what I was gonna say too, when it comes to lighter loads, because I have had some athletes be like, "Hey, like I'm like embarrassed to lift right now because like
Yeah.
I am peeing." I will address a few things first before I refer out. Number one, it could be how you wear your belt, how tight you wear your belt, where the belt
Hmm.
is placed, how low it is. So I have had some women where like I adjust the belt a little bit higher and like boom, it was just like sitting directly on their bladder. So that was one
Hmm.
small thing that sometimes does work. Number two, really going over how to brace because a lot of people just suck in and push down and bear down. Like that's
Yeah.
not bracing. Like you really have to understand how to like take in air and like really expand it into your actual core, like your sides, your back, your front, like filling the whole belt with air versus just inhaling and then pushing down, right? Like you should
Yeah.
really feel like your spine is super protected because you just like push out 360 around your whole core. So if they're not feeling that way, or if I can see they have a very shallow inhale or a big like inhale, like I see the chest just moving a ton, but like their stomach looks the same. So I'm like, you're just breathing into like your chest. Like I
Yeah.
will address the brace. That can definitely be a huge help. That has also
Yeah.
helped some women not really pee. But if it's not those two things, that is when I'm like, okay, your bracing seems to be on point. Like I don't think it's the belt. Can you even doing it without the belt? Like obviously going to the bathroom before you actually start your lift. Because that has actually like some people really just like need to go to the bathroom beforehand. Like you're about to go heavy, like literally go to the bathroom. But if that has not helped it, then I'm like, okay, we may need to refer out because if it's happening so often that you're embarrassed and then you're getting uncomfortable training, I don't want that for you. And like
Yeah.
I feel like just being like put on a pad is like, you know what I mean? Like it's like uh
You're putting on a band-aid at that point. That's
it
really what
totally is
it
a
is.
band-aid and a band-aid that you won't have to use maybe to help you not be embarrassed.
Or
But
some
that's
thick
not a
band-aids.
solution.
Yeah. I'm actually really glad that you brought up the point of like some having to go to the bathroom beforehand, because there's actually so like what you and I are talking about right now is stress urinary incontinence. And
Hmm.
then there's also another form of incontinence would be urge. And that's like that immediate like sense of urge, that sensation like I gotta go. And that seems to happen, and you'll notice like before lifting when your nerves are kind of like you're nervous, right? And the way to equate it is like, you when you're breathing, when we take in a breath, it's um like voluntary and non-voluntary, right? We breathe in our sleep when we're not thinking about it, but we can also hold our breath and we can also control our breathing if we want to. And so the same thing is happens with our urinary like tract system where we can relieve ourselves when we want to, but we're not sitting here having this conversation the whole time, like controlling our bladder. And So when you're nervous, like in those situations, it can kind of relax the pelvic floor. And that's sometimes too why when you're lifting a max weight and say you're on a platform and your nerves are going, a lot of it can just be because your pelvic floor is just uh relaxed due to nerves. And that's not something that a lot of people really will think about. So another way that you could probably if that's an issue for you where it's like you got to go to the bathroom and you have this like urge, even though you're like, I just went 10 seconds ago. Like, why do I feel like I still have? Like, I used to do that when I was deadlifting. I'd be like, I'd go in between each attempt, and it's like, I literally just went.
That was me before every squat until maybe 3 years ago. And I remember I've been practicing
Yeah.
for like 8 years now. And there was a good 5 years of like, I'm so nervous, I have to pee. You just went to the bathroom. I have to pee. You're 3 people out. I have to pee. Please just wait. You
And
don't have time for
you're
this.
like, there's nothing inside me anymore. It's all
Exactly.
gone. But somehow, like, it still shows up on the platform. Somehow I'm like, oh, like, I thought we were empty, I guess. But that's another, so it's not just when we talk about it being a physical symptom of being weak, well, it's not, it's also can be psychological. And if that's the situation, one of the things that they'll actually recommend is like not meditation, but like the mindful, like take a deep breath, like relax your nerves, kind of like that can help. And also like, I don't know, for me, I'm like, if I'm going to win a championship or if I want to win, like I'm not going to stop pulling. If it happens, it happens.
That is one thing I
I'm
do
like,
want to say. Like, please don't let it stop you on the platform, please.
yeah,
Like you could be pulling for, even if it's not for the win, it's like your third attempt. Like,
just,
please go. Please just
just
go.
don't stop. Let it out, girl. Embrace it. Actually, I have to, because it happens sometimes when I'm like in training too. And there's times where, like I haven't posted a video because like I peed and it's not sexy, it's not attractive. I'm like, I'm not posting this, it's embarrassing. And so I actually give a lot of credit. And I can't say I never have because I have posted a video, but I don't do it often. Um, for the women who, so I know like the big video that a lot of people have seen was Hunter Henderson. Have
Mm-hmm.
you know exactly what video I'm talking
Yeah.
about? And I give her a lot of credit for posting that. I even think Joy, I don't know what her name is, Joy Fitness. Is
Yes.
that her? You know who I'm referring to? Okay.
That's right.
She
That's handle.
yeah, she like I think recently posted a video of it happening to her. And it's like you look at these comments and it's like a lot of guys and even women who are like berating her and being
Yep.
like, what, like that's gross, that's so like disrespectful, kind of. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you post about it? And really like putting these women down. And I have
Mm-hmm.
to actually commend them for doing that because it's like they're raising awareness to this situation. And for women who may be embarrassed, they're like, oh well, at least it's not just me. I see this
Yes.
other lifter who I, look up to or who I know, and it happens, And so even though it's unsightly, um, I respect women for posting about it.
Especially like as long as you're cleaning up after yourself, like
Yeah.
people stop acting like it's disrespectful. Like no one's out here doing it on purpose. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
It's like literally not that serious.
So when I still competed as a 63 and like Sam Calhoun, she would always, because she was like the great deadlifter, and so she always came after me. I used to joke with her and I was like, I left you a present on the platform.
Yeah, you're the worst. You're like, you have a less of a chance if I make it a little slippery. So yeah.
Yeah, and in fairness, like actually, it would be kind of gross when you think about it because in the meet, it's a lot of they'll use a rug or a carpet. And
Yep.
I mean, like women have been peeing on it like all day. So when you walk up to the platform and you see like all these little spots and
You
like they
just
just
can't
have
pay
it.
attention to it.
No, and they'll like roll the bar forward. Like you can see where like they started at the middle and now the bar is like kind of towards the front. And then yeah, it's just like you clean it up, you put a bunch of baby powder, on the floor, and then you're like,
Baby powder on the floor.
or not baby powder. What do they put on?
I thought they just
Chalk.
sprayed something on it. You
Do
can put
they? I
chalk
think
on
they.
it.
Not baby powder. Wow, sorry.
I was like, yo, please don't do that. You're really trying to make sure Sam can't listen.
Well, in fairness, I never put it. It's like
I know. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
the volunteers, the
Yeah.
spotters and loaders are the ones, and they
They
put
just spray it
powder.
now. I
Is
used to see
it?
chalk, but I haven't seen chalk in a long time.
Or
So
is
I think
it
it
like
just
baking soda? So it's not chalk? I don't know. I
I've
remember they
only
used to put powder on it.
I've only seen powder once, and I think I assumed it was chalk because now all I see is like the spray, so I don't even like pay attention.
I wonder what the spray is. Is it just like Febreze, where it's like they're just gonna try to make it smell pretty?
I don't know. I would guess maybe like a disinfectant spray or something. Which I mean, even though he is sterile, but still, I guess it's better.
It's
I don't know.
yeah.
I
I mean,
dije, yo
usually,
no sé.
but all I have to say is that if it happens, don't. I mean, yes, I know it's embarrassing, but don't let it ruin your performance. Like it happens. It's a lot more common than people like to admit. And I'm glad that I'm starting to see women posting about it, even if it might not be, you know, even if it might make people uncomfortable and it's unsightly.
Yes,
So
I
there's that.
concur. I love this. All right.
Yeah.
I will say, 'cause
Mm.
you did talk about how it happened to you before. So I think I'll end with just saying, like, for myself, it's only happened 2 times for me personally. Just because people will be like, "Oh, Solana has happened to you." It happened to me twice ever. It was a long time ago, to be honest. Like, it was definitely not on the platform, but it was definitely going for like a heavy squat both times.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, for me, I think it was a combination of like my belt. Sometimes when I gain a few pounds, like I just won't change that belt. I just won't change it. Like I don't have an FPD where you can change it like in 2 seconds. And I'm like, I'm not unscrewing it. It was a combination of that plus like truly, I was kind of like, I kind of have to pee, but I think I'm just nervous and I don't feel like waiting. I already asked these people to spot me, so I'm just gonna go for it. Like, all right. So that's a lot I learned was okay, just go pee and like literally please just adjust the belt.
Yeah.
Even right now,
See,
I haven't adjusted my belt all this week, and I really need to. I'm a good 3 pounds heavier. I desperately need to change it. I have yet to do it. It's still the same size.
you just change it, whatever. It's you know what, embrace it, girl. Whatever, you know.
I've embraced the weight. I'm just it's sheer laziness. It's not even oh
I
no. It's like
know.
no, I have to unscrew it and move it and then rescrew it in.
I know. That's honestly like why I like the SBD belts because it's like, oh, I can just move it out a little bit if I
Yes.
need to. Like, so
I'm
yeah, I feel
actually
that
this is totally off topic now. I'm really considering getting that 10 millimeter belt because I've always that my belt touches my last rib. And
when
for
you're
my
squatting.
deadlift, both deadlift and squat.
Mm,
And when I'm deadlifting, I feel like I'm moving around my belt, but like I've just done it my whole life. I've had the same
yeah,
belt. And I just have a feeling that belt might make my deadlift feel better. And like the Lord knows I'll do anything to get my
yeah, to
deadlift
get
any stronger than it
better.
is. So
Yeah, I have the 10 millimeter belt. I've tried it. I've only tried it on deadlift. And I've tried it on bench because I used to bench with a belt and then I stopped. But I was like, well, maybe let me try it. And I mean, maybe I'm just used to the 13 millimeter and it just is going to take me to getting used to. But I felt like it wasn't as supportive on
mm,
deadlift. But I think there's been a few people who've made YouTube videos about it, and a lot of people I think almost prefer the 10 millimeter. What did you? David Wilson made a video. I didn't watch it though. I don't know
ooh,
what he.
okay, okay, I'll check it out. Cause I haven't but I've only seen people post about it on their story so far.
Yeah, I
And
think
I've
he
had a
did a
lot
video. Did Natalie do a
she
video
made a video
too?
too. I need to watch it. I need to watch
Yeah, but
someone's
she's
video.
also like
She's tiny. But
120 pounds, so I think for small for
well, you know what
smaller
I'll say though?
lifters.
What made me really interested too is Gabby Martinez posted she liked it for a deadlift. I'm like, oh, we're closer in weights. So that makes
Okay.
me feel better. Because you're right. When I see Natalie, I'm like, Natalie, you have a six pack, and I haven't seen my abs in like 3 years. I have not seen abs, even after a water cut, in 3 years now. Okay. It's not gonna
Really? I don't think I've seen abs in like 10, girl. They're there
like
somewhere.
Maybe if I do a water cup plus I'm full on starving and like I suck in and like just took a poop, like maybe I can get like one after show. I'm so extra.
Maybe I'd be more inclined if I had like a non-SPD belt that was like the prong where I have to like manually adjust as opposed to like, oh, I gain weight, whatever, where it's like, oh, I have to like go through all this work to like acknowledge that I've gained.
I
Oh,
feel
good
you.
times, good times.
But
Cool.
all right. This was a good one. I liked this conversation. I hope y'all liked it too.
Girl power.
Hey, but as usual, girl, thank you for joining me. I
Yeah,
this December 7th, we'll see. We might get in one more together before the new year. We
let's
can
do
make it
it.
happen. Let's do it.
Actually, what about if we ask people what they want us to talk about?
Okay. So if you
How
made it
about
to the
that?
end of this episode, please do tell us via DM me or
DM.
Kristen. I'll put the DMs or the IG in the show notes. What topic you want us to talk about next, and then we'll come
Yes.
up with one and
Yeah.
talk about it before New Year.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you again, and y'all catch you next time on the Power and Lifting podcast.